Hey dude, what's up? My name is Evan, and today I want to teach you how to license your music. This is going to be Music Licensing 101. I'm assuming you're a musician that has music that you would like to start licensing, to start profiting from your music. And that's exactly what I'm going to teach you to do. Everything you need to know to launch a music licensing side hustle. So, let's do an overview of what we're going to cover. First, we're going to talk about what is music licensing, right? You got to know that. Then I'm going to talk about how you get paid. We'll move on to what types of music, what genres, what styles. Can you really sell polka death metal music? Maybe. Then we're going to talk about what's unique about stock music versus just regular old music. Next, we'll talk about exclusive versus non-exclusive libraries. From there, we'll move on to getting publishing royalties and broadcast payments. And finally, I'll talk about my favorite library and where you should begin your journey. The best library for beginners. A little bit about me. My name is Evan. I've been making music since third grade, which is about a long time. 30-ish years. I'm from San Diego originally, but I've lived in DC for the past 20 years. I have a full-time job, but I've also created a bunch of systems that have allowed me to earn a nice amount on the side by licensing music. And these songs that I've licensed have been featured on Netflix movies, on TV shows, on award-winning indie film, and even NPR's All Things Considered. I help musicians grow their passion for music into a profitable and rewarding side hustle by teaching them the skills they need to turn their home studio into a lucrative side hustle, turn a hobby into something that really works for you. And my favorite thing is to receive emails and comments from people who are really satisfied and happy with what they've learned and just sharing, how I've helped them. So if, when this works out for you, please don't hesitate to leave a comment or shoot me an email. I also want to let you know that I've got a free music licensing challenge. You can visit stockmusicmusician.com or click the link to join it. It will be an even more in-depth, hands-on approach to music licensing. It'll teach you everything you need to know on a deeper level. This is what we're going to learn, and this mini course is basically a high-level overview. I'm not going to hide any sausage. It's just this is going to move kind of fast. So sit back, relax, and strap in. First thing I want to talk about is what is music licensing? I think there's a lot of misconceptions about it, so I really want to get this out of the way. Music licensing is essentially granting someone the right to synchronize your music with their media production. So, somebody wants to make a TV show and they want to line up your music with theirs. Just buying a copy of your CD doesn't give them that right. As the song right owner, you get to choose what your music is matched up with, how your music is used. And so when you license your music, you are granting somebody the right to synchronize it. And this could be on TV or YouTube, anywhere. Basically, just you're granting them the right to use your music, not as a listener, but as a consumer, as a producer. Licenses are generally sold by libraries. You can think of eBay. They've got music from all sorts of different musicians. They bring it all together in their marketplace, and then buyers can search for their perfect preferred song. In a further section, we'll get into these different concepts a little bit, but on a high level, I want to divide it into 3 different types of libraries. You've got exclusive libraries, stock music libraries, and subscription libraries. So how are they different? Well, this is sort of, first I would say, in descending order of prestige. Exclusive libraries are the most prestigious. You really need to have professional quality music to get in. And they deal mostly, not exclusively with TV and movie, but a lot with those types of end users. Stock music is much more opening, much more welcoming to all types of music. And their clients tend to be everybody. They can, everybody from a YouTuber to a podcaster to TV and movies. So it's not like those types of clients aren't there. It's just less likely. They also tend to be a little less lucrative, and charge less. Finally, you have subscription libraries, which there's really all different types for quality. I don't recommend these. The way it works is basically a client can pay like $40 a month or something, $30 a month, and download unlimited songs by anybody, and instead of earning $80, $90, even $30, even $15 a song, you might be earning $1 or $2. And so I think both, they're not useful for your time, and I think they're bad for the industry, and I don't recommend them. But those are the three main types of places you could license your music. And like I said, we'll get into more detail later. One thing to really note is that you can license the same song repeatedly. So what I've found is, of the hundreds of songs that I put out there, probably more than half have never sold. And the very best songs will be licensed, 10, 15 times. So it's really cool when you land on a successful song, because it's a gift that just keeps on giving year in and year out. Some people can earn a full-time living with music licensing. I think it's really hard to build up a large enough library to get there without doing it full-time. So it's sort of like a catch-22. If you could work on making music for licensing all day, every day, then you can make enough music to have a full-time income. But because you have a regular job, you can't do that. But still, I've earned probably over $15,000 in 3 or 4 years, maybe 4 or 5 years doing this at this point. So there's definitely good money you can make on the side for doing your hobby, which is making music. So yeah, that's the basics of music licensing. How do you get paid? Well, the first thing I want to talk about is this term royalty-free, or maybe even copyright-free music. There are a few places out there where music is just given away, or even some of these sites might bill themselves as royalty-free, but that's a myth. As a copyright holder, unless you are explicitly choosing to give your music away, you are entitled to royalties. So the first royalty is that sync fee we talked about, right? People, when they pay to purchase a license for the right to use your music in any way, that's a royalty you receive. And you could think of it as an upfront royalty. They're paying you upfront for the right to use your music with their song. So every time somebody purchases that license, you get paid the royalty. You get paid the fee. That's sort of how a royalty is different from a just regular, sale. Like, I could sell you this pen, but then I wouldn't have the pen anymore. You'd have the pen. And so I wouldn't be receiving a royalty. I'd just be receiving a payment for the pen. Or, let's say I am a masseuse. Well, you would pay me, I give you a massage. I would have provided a service in exchange for your money. But with a royalty, what it is I'm granting you the right to use something in exchange for your money, but I still retain the right to grant other people the rights to purchase it. So sync fees are going to be the most common types of royalties you'll see with stock music licensing. Every library is going to be a little different about how frequently they'll pay you out and the thresholds they have. Some, every time you have more than, X amount of dollars in your account, you can take it out. Others pay out every month on, the 15th or whatever. Some might only pay quarterly. But sync fees are the first part. The second part is publishing royalties if your music is broadcast. And we get into this a bit more further down the line. But basically the way it works is, as the composer, you have not only a right to get paid to choose how your music is used, which is the sync fee, but also if your music is then publicly performed, for example, broadcast on TV, you also are entitled to a public performance royalty. And these can really add up. One of my most successful song in terms of broadcasting on TV earned me over like $2,000 from these publishing royalties. And these do not come from the library, and they also don't come from the client. These instead come from the network that's broadcasting the show. So, if somebody was making a TV show and they purchased a song of mine, they only pay, $100 to purchase that song. That's it. Then they sell their TV show to NBC. NBC has the broadcast license, and so they are going to pay the broadcast licensing fee to my performing rights organization, which is BMI, and then BMI will cut me a check. Also, we talked about exclusive libraries a little bit. We'll get into them more. But often if you join a music library and submit songs that are accepted, they'll pay a consideration fee, or sometimes it's called a buyout fee. Basically, they're buying the rights to your song, the exclusive rights. So that means you can't license them on other sites. But that can be, it can be a few $100s per song. It can be as little as 50, but or maybe even higher than that. So that's how you get paid for licensing your music. What types of music are good for music licensing? Well, there's both vocal and non-vocal music licensing. Tons of music for both. There's a huge market for both. Whatever you do, try and do it well, especially vocal stuff. I think there's very little market for bad vocals. There's still a decent market for bad instrumentals or even mediocre instrumentals, but vocals really have to be a high quality. And if you really want to get a sense of what this type of music is, I'd recommend watching, some reality TV. Sit down for an afternoon, and turn on Bravo or something, or HGTV, and take a notepad and literally write down every time a new song comes on, and write down like 3 or 4 words to describe that music. Is it, upbeat? Is it sad? Is it poppy? What instruments are featured? Is it a lot of ukulele? In any event, just about any genre works for music licensing. It's just all going to depend on the client, because there's a million different clients, right? How many different TV shows now with cable and Netflix and stuff are there? I recently saw a show that does old-fashioned repairs, of antiques, and then you've got fashion shows, you've got history shows, you've got war shows, you've got shows that take place in ancient China, and sci-fi shows. I mean, any genre can work, and plenty that just take place in modern day. Hip hop is always popular, rock is always popular, and also, the more modern your music sounds, there's certainly tons of opportunity for vintage music. But because the style music is always evolving, there's not as much competition if you're able to be on the bleeding edge. But I think you really have to understand that music and work there. That's not most of what I do. I mostly do kind of traditional rock and hip hop stuff. There's also a genre of music called corporate music, which is almost like, kind of generic stock music. Happy, upbeat, maybe some stomps and claps, ukulele. I don't like it. I don't make it. Some people make it and make a ton of money from it. Certainly where there's a lot of interest from clients, but it's also very saturated. And on a lot of libraries, they actually don't accept. They're very unlikely to accept corporate music unless it's really, really cream of the crop. Whereas other genres, which they have less of, they're willing to be more flexible. So if you can make excellent corporate music and you enjoy making it, maybe that's for you. But I would recommend, first of all, making music that you enjoy, because you never know which song is going to be a hit and which one isn't. And if you're making it only for pure profit, you're probably going to miss out on something. Another thing that works really well for stock music, for music licensing in general, is hybrid music, which is, genres that maybe don't exist in more traditional, like as a listener, you would never buy a CD for a band like that, but that it actually works very well for licensing. So, you could think of, rap rock is hybrid music that actually people listen to, but still that type of vibe and energy where you've got, a modern sound mixed with rock, or you listen to cinematic, trailer music where it's classical mixed with EDM drops, or I often joke about polkish death metal, but I am sure somewhere out there is a market for that, because, who knows what's going on in Poland, right? There's probably some hardcore shows. Whatever you do, though, you should try and follow the unique style conventions of stock music, which aren't really genre-based, but more a way of approaching stock music, which was what we'll talk about next. But I just want to say again, basically anything goes, but make sure you do it well. And especially if you're doing vocal music, you have to do it very well. The vocal part needs to be well. It needs to be good. And make music that you enjoy. So what makes music for licensing unique? Well, like I said, any genre is fine, but what you need to have is make a few tweaks to your music so that it fits in with the vibe of music licensing and is more usable by clients. So the first thing is that it has to be constantly evolving. That way, it helps tell the story that a TV show might need. That, if it's just staying still and very repetitive, that's going to be less likely than a song that goes somewhere, which is why it's really important for you to sit down and watch some TV and actually take notes and notice that songs are always building up or breaking down, or have a couple of transitions real quick when they're used in those contexts. Another thing to consider is that there should be fewer lead elements. Your lead should be less busy. And also from like a choice of sounds, the synths you might choose, and a mixing perspective, they should be less present in the mix, because you have to imagine that often there's going to be a voiceover with this type of music. If your music is included on a TV show, the narrator might be speaking over it, or a commercial or something like that. And so you don't want your mix, both from an arrangement perspective and from a mixing perspective, to conflict with where a human voice might be. I've already talked about how you should always have that sense of forward motion in your track. You also want to load it with transitional elements. Risers, reverse cymbals, drum fills, things like that really help signal that something is about to change. So that, when they're editing your song into their shots, if they want to go like, if it's like a reality show where it's like, she said what? And then it cuts to the other person, it's like, and then it hits on the next beat right as it cuts. So you need to have these like things that very subtly but are baked deep into your song that give editors lots to work with. Transitional elements, basically. On an unrelated note, but very important, is that you can't have tempo changes, because often, if you really pay attention to TV, you could almost cut it to a metronome. And if your song is speeding up and slowing down, it's just going to make it much more difficult for the editors, and that's going to make it more difficult for you to license your song. Finally, I would also say that, generally speaking, the sections of your song, the verse, the chorus, etc., should be clear and distinct. Like, you should know that you're in a different part. And this is sort of, the transitional elements help, but in terms of arrangement, volume, chord structure, people aren't generally looking to buy loops. They're looking to buy something to help them tell their own story, and that's where you come in. So if you apply these tips, your music will start to sound like stock music. It doesn't matter what genre it is, just as long as you bake this into rock, or into EDM, or into hip hop, or into rap rock, whatever. Next, let's talk about exclusive versus non-exclusive libraries. We've touched on this a bit, but I want to dig a little deeper. So, exclusive libraries are professional grade. That's what your music needs to sound like, and that's what their clients are. These people work directly with TV networks and film studios, and they expect the music that is submitted to them to be totally comparable to anything you'd hear on TV. It can be really hard to get into libraries, these exclusive libraries, because first of all, you have to have really good music. But second of all, they each have their own unique needs, right? If this library already has 8,000 hip-hop tracks and you have a very good hip-hop track, they might not need you. They might already have those bases covered, so why would they spend an upfront fee to purchase your songs when they've got that covered? At the same time, maybe they want to be the go-to place for hip-hop, and so maybe they will have, maybe they will want the song because they want to have all the best hip-hop and be known as the place to go when you need to grab hip-hop. My point is merely that having a good song isn't enough with these exclusive libraries. It also has to be a good fit for what they're trying to do. Also, you need to generally have at least 4 songs ready to go when you pitch to them. They're looking to buy full albums. I think it's just the transaction cost of setting up a contract and doing all of that stuff is just too much for them to be interested in purchasing one song at a time. Instead, when you submit a full EP, at least four songs and up. The more songs you can submit that are thematically consistent, the more likely you are of, getting their attention, A, and B, even if, you submit 8, but they're happy with 5, then, they'll take it. Or they'll take those 5. And so that just gives you more chances to get their interest. A thing about exclusive libraries is kind of in the name. If you get a song into an exclusive library, you can't license that song anywhere else. When they give you the upfront fee, basically they're buying the copyrights to your song, and then they get to choose what it does. So if having control of your music is important for you, that might be problematic. But the flip side of that is generally if you sell a license, or generally when they license your music, the payouts are going to be higher because the clients are more prestigious and they know that the music is better. You're also going to be receiving those upfront fees that I talked about when they buy the rights to your music. And because of who their clients are, you're much more likely to get TV placements and movie placements with your music on these libraries. And that, in turn, is more likely to lead to back-end royalties, performance royalties that we talked about a little bit earlier. They will act as a publisher, which means they'll take half of what you get, but it's half that you probably wouldn't get, or you wouldn't get any of that pie otherwise. So it can be really helpful to work with them. In contrast, non-exclusive libraries are open to a huge variety of music styles and producers. A lot of them aren't looking for one thing or the other, and you can come as you are, so to speak, to quote Kurt. The, up-and-coming producer has a much better shot, basically, as they learn their craft in a non-exclusive library. You can upload one song at a time. I meant to say upload, not upload. You can upload one song at a time to non-exclusive libraries or more. Everyone's a little different, but what I mean by this is you don't need to wait till you have a full EP of similar songs to submit it. When your songs are ready, put them up. Start getting opportunities to license them. They do tend to offer lower payments than what you would get from an exclusive library most of the time, although they sometimes have higher tiers of licenses that can be pretty lucrative. Sometimes, though, the payments can be laughably small. There was one library I worked with for a little while that was paying $2 a song or something. And I said, you know what, screw you guys. I'm taking my songs and going home because I'm not going to, it's an insult to me for it to be priced that low. And with non-exclusive libraries, most of your licenses don't result in prestigious placements. Maybe they're used for corporate videos. Maybe they're used for film school or YouTube, something like that. So you're not going to be receiving those performance royalties. And also, in case it wasn't clear based on the names and what we've already talked about, with non-exclusive libraries, you can generally take that music and upload it to lots of non-exclusive libraries. So even though individual payments might be lower and the placements might be more prestigious, if you had the same song in 4 libraries, maybe the total amount of revenue that you could earn would be comparable to an exclusive library. We've already touched on publishing and broadcast a little bit, but I just want to dig into this a little deeper. When you are entitled to a performance royalty, there are 2 parts that add up to 100%, although for simplicity, we'll say they add up to 100%. So the songwriter is entitled to 50%, and the publisher is entitled to 50%. And the publisher basically is going to be your library, if it's an exclusive library. And what they will do is they will handle all the back-end work. They will register your songs with their PRO. They will make sure that cue sheets get filed so you get paid. And, they'll just do all sorts of administrative stuff to help. The writer share is reserved for you as the writer. If you are with a non-exclusive library, though, you are usually entitled to the publisher's share, but you have to do all the publisher's work, which is not that difficult to do, aside from making sure that the cue sheets are filed, which is how you actually get paid. And you really don't have a way to do that with most non-exclusive libraries. But if your song is broadcast on TV, like I said, you can get publishing royalties, which can sometimes be substantial. But in order to do that, you need to join a performing rights organization like BMI in the US or ASCAP. Every nation is going to be a little different. In the US, I recommend BMI. From what I hear, from anecdotally from other people that do this, it seems to lead to better results for music licensing, whereas ASCAP is more for the traditional musician. Then if you're going the non-exclusive route, you actually have to register every song, every track with your PRO, which, it takes 2 or 3 minutes per song. Not too bad. But if your song isn't registered, then you're not going to get paid for it. Then if your song is broadcast, the person that actually made the video, made the TV show, somebody there is responsible, or somebody at their network is responsible for submitting a list of songs so that BMI actually knows to track it, and you get paid. Sometimes these payouts, depending on how long the song was played, how prominently it was played in the show, what network the show is on, how often that show is repeated, is it in syndication and rebroadcast, every day like Seinfeld, or is it, just a one-off special? Your payouts can be significant to negligible, but there's serious money on the back end, so I definitely recommend learning how to tap into that. Where to license your music? I think at the beginning, and maybe even for your first year, it's best to focus on getting better at writing and producing music that works for licensing, and also learning some platforms for music licensing, instead of trying to get up on every website, most of which do not end up leading to any sales. I recommend that you just work on Pond5, because it represents a good balance of earning potential and earn accessibility for up-and-coming producers, in that they will accept quite a bit of music in terms of both quality and style. And the thing is, you can always take your music off of Pond5. And I've had tracks on Pond5 that I later sold to an exclusive library after I remixed them and, added some elements once I got better. And they were like, yeah, we don't care if you had it up on Pond5 before, just as long as it's not out there being sold today. So no matter where you are in your career, well, especially if you're at the beginning of it, Pond5 is a great place to start. And try to stick with it for a year, because it's a sort of thing where, unless you have enough songs up there, your songs might not be found or purchased. So if you can upload 4 different tracks a month, I think by, the 4-month mark, you'll probably start to see a sale or 2 a month, which is the greatest feeling, that first sale you get when you're like, wait, people are really paying me for my music? And even, 4 or 5 years later, I still get a thrill every time I get an email notification. Your song was purchased. It feels good. So stick with it. Really try and stick with it for a year, and try to upload 4 songs a month. And I think to Pond5. And I think, at that point, you can decide whether it's right for you or not. But consistency, improving your skills both as a songwriter and as a producer are really important. And practicing, the craft of writing for stock music is also really important. And I think it's accessible. I really believe that you can start to, pay your bills with music licensing. It's been a really wonderful opportunity for me, certainly, to, cover quite a few bills every month. So that's where to license your music. If you have any questions, just leave a comment below. I'll be happy to respond, and let me know how I can help you. Let me know what you thought of this video and if it was useful. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.